How do you feel about transgender ninjas?
I thought they were cool.
Yeah.
Actually,
Jangling away as they're doing stealth takedowns. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Two Asian Blokes Podcast, a podcast where we talk about Asian pop culture, films, TV shows, comic books, anime, music, food, video games, whatever we're feeling at the time, really. My name is Dan with a H. With me, as always, is my co-host Tavi. Hey, Tavi.
Hello, Dan.
We're doing something different today, Tavi.
Yeah, trying to experiment a little bit,
Yeah.
I guess, if this is what you call experimenting.
Well, we're experimenting by doing something that many other
everyone
people
else
before
does.
us has done before, but with a little bit of a twist. So we're going to try a new segment of the show today, a news segment, if you will. So we're going to do news of the week that is somewhat vaguely related to Asian pop culture, which is what we talk about in this podcast. Usually we do try to shy away from doing news just because our workflow is really slow and often our timeline is pretty fucked. So bear in mind that we've already recorded a bunch of episodes prior to deciding to do this. So maybe not all of our episodes in the near future will include news, but we'll try to do it as often as we can because people like news, people like being informed.
Yeah, sure.
So in today's news, we'll be talking about Grimm 3-body problem news, David Chang Chili Crunch news, the Matrix 5 news, the Roundup punishment news, and a new trailer for Indian movie Kill, as well as a review of the big movie of this week, Dev Patel's Monkey Man. If you want to jump around, I'll put time codes in the description.
And in true professional podcast fashion, I've barely looked into any of these topics that you've mentioned in the news, except maybe stumbling across a couple of things here and there. So that is the.
So this will be as informative for you as it will be for our listeners. But before we get to the news of the week, Tavi, let's talk about white fever. So over the weekend, we were invited to a preview screening of the TV show White Fever, which is an Australian sitcom starring Ra Chapman as Jane, a Korean-Australian adoptee who gets called out for being a fake Asian and is accused of having a white man fetish. So she throws herself into a quest to reprogram her whitewashed libido. So we watched, I had to go to Melbourne for this. I didn't have to, but I wanted to because I wanted to see you, Tavi. I wanted to catch up with you in person for once.
Yeah, sure. You didn't want to make sure that I fuck things up. Premiere.
Can't let you go anywhere, Tavi, without me.
Yeah, I got too much of a potty mouth or controversial opinion.
Yeah, you're just not woke enough for media, Tavi. People aren't ready.
Yeah, I tend to just say things, and it's just like pisses people off, but like that doesn't really matter. It's like it's fine. It is what it is. Just say what I want to say. We
went to a pretty packed preview screening at the Capitol in Melbourne as part of the Melbourne International Comedy Festival. Really full cinema. Pretty good turnout. Pretty mixed crowd as well. A lot of the cast and crew were there as well. Like Ra Chapman herself was there. Didn't get to see Chris Pang, unfortunately, who was also in this TV show.
He's too big for this shit, man. Isn't he
probably
LA based now, or something.
I don't know where he is. Maybe he's busy filming Joyride 2
or Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon 3.
Or was he in that? Oh, was he in Sword of Destiny?
The second one.
Okay.
Yeah, my mum was watching it the other day, and then when I was eating dinner, I was just looking at it and like, is that Chris Pang? Because I think the lead of that movie is Australian as well.
Okay.
And she had
I thought it had Michelle Yeoh in it.
Yeah, it does have Michelle Yeoh in it. She just sounds like Michelle Yeoh.
Yeah. But that would be his second time working alongside Michelle Yeoh. So he's a pretty big deal. But this show White Fever isn't really about him.
No, it's not. Yeah, he's kind of a supporting character.
Pretty similar to Joyride in that it is following like a Asian person that's been adopted into white America, or in this case, white Australia.
Looking for identity.
And doing sex
It's
stuff.
also like a raunchy comedy as well.
That's right, yeah. I think it's funnier than Joyride, honestly. But maybe that's just because I'm Aussie and it's a really Aussie depiction of this Korean adoptee experience.
Yeah, we kind of connect a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, admittedly, some of the sex comedy humor did not really land for me. But I did like legitimately low at some of the stuff. I think in the first episode, she hooks up with this big Aussie bloke with a big bushy beard and chest hair because that's kind of her type, yeah. But then she like comes to this realization that he has a fetish for like petite Asian women, and that's why he's with her as well. And like the way she comes to this gradual realization is like really funny because like they're in his room like kind of getting it on, and he's like really into martial arts, and he knows like more about Korean culture than her, and he kind of drops subtle details about his preferred type of women, like petite. And he also owns a kimono and a katana. So he's kind of like a weeb. So
I mean, there's a lot of white guys that are kind of like that weeb kind of culture
and that's the kind of thing
and
I found it a bit more relatable, right? Because we've seen people like that. We know of people like that. And I just found it interesting because like while she's fetishizing him for like being a manly white guy, he's also fetishizing her for being like a meek Asian girl. But both of them like internally are not really that. So I found that pretty interesting. There's also a funny scene where she's trying to hook up with like this skinny Korean boy.
I found that scene a little bit funny as well.
It's pretty funny. He like learns that she's a Korean adoptee, and he starts crying and like talking about like Han and Ibyana and shit. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's pretty fun. So I don't know. I feel like Ra and the team they've obviously done their research. From what I saw, like it feels like a more personal and researched experience than Joyride, which I do appreciate. Like even if not all of the humor landed for me, I'm sure it would with some people.
Well, we've only watched they only aired the first 3 at the cinema at the screening. So I think this is part of the Melbourne Comedy Festival. So yeah, like, you know, we're pretty grateful to have been invited to this premiere. And to know that our podcast is making some kind of a ripple, even if it's a very minute ripple.
No, it was very gracious of Screen Presence to send the invite to us. So thank you to Screen Presence and the production team at White Fever.
Yeah. But I think people who listen to us probably want to hear a genuine opinion. And like I said, you know, we did meet like Ra. We got a photo of her, and again, we're grateful. But like, I'm not sure if I was a big fan of the show itself. I appreciate like the personality of the show. As you said, it sounds like it was very researched on their end, and it seems like it's a story that they wanted to tell, but it's just not really my cup of tea.
You're not really a sitcom
kind of humor
guy in general.
I'm not really a sitcom guy. I'm not really into the raunchy sex comedy, I guess. I think like when I look back on my childhood and everyone was really obsessing over American Pie, I think I kind of pretended to like it, but I never really did. It's a very like Australian style of humor, which I don't know really how to pinpoint. And the show itself has that very like distinct ABC look that I'm not really a big fan of either in terms of its color grading.
Sure.
But I mean, like, it's good to support, you know. I mean, I'm always harping on about like supporting something that is like, I guess, a Western Asian production, but also like if you don't like something, you should say it as well. And it's like, you know, it's nothing personal against the people behind the show, but
it's just not your kind of show. I don't think you're the target audience, really. Even though you are Australian and you are Asian, you're not the target audience, I would say.
I'm not the target audience.
But I think if you are a fan of like sex comedies, I guess, and if you're a fan of like Australian sitcoms, I feel like this is pretty nostalgic. It feels like you're packed to the rafters or something like in that same vein. Like the humor is very much like that kind of humor. And I mean, it's good to see like this kind of personal experience as well being put on film. Like, it feels very genuine. And like, you know, I was able to learn a bit about what it might be like for Korean adoptees growing up in Australia. So that's pretty cool. And we did get to meet Ra. She said that she's been working on this show and developing this show for 4 years to get it off the ground. So, and I think that shows...
That's not surprising.
It's got like a pretty high level of attention to detail, I would say, for a show like this. And she seems really nice. But like we said, not all of it landed for me. And I think like Tavi, you know, it's not really his kind of show. But again, if you are into like this kind of show, I think it's one of the better ones, I would say, from what I've seen anyway. And it's pretty breezy as well. 6 episodes, half an hour each. So
yeah, pretty short. Yeah, I think I will probably finish watching it just to see where the story goes, because I think the story.
Yeah, we've already seen half of it.
Yeah, I think it is like a good story. It's just like, maybe the execution is not really my aesthetic.
I
that's all.
I don't think it's your aesthetic.
I will follow like the story just to see where it goes.
See what happens to Chris Pang. I'll make Chris Pang.
What happens to Chris Pang? Yeah. I mean, if Chris Pang is listening, sorry, man. Like, we seem to be like ragging on everything that you've started. We were ragging on Joyride. I rag on Crazy Rich Asians all the time. I kind of had a slight rag on Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon.
I like Tomorrow When the War Began, man. That's a good movie, I reckon.
I haven't seen Tomorrow When the War Began, so I'm sure Chris is like a really lovely guy as well. I just haven't liked that much stuff that he's been in.
Sure.
And that's not his fault. That's just, unfortunate.
But yeah, if you're interested in White Fever, it is premiering on ABC TV and ABC iView tonight, actually. So Wednesday, the 10th of April. Yeah, if you're a fan of Asian Western media like Joyride and Crazy Rich Asians, or if you're a fan of sex comedies like Sex Education, I think this is well worth checking out.
Let's also look forward to some collabs that we met with a gentleman who also attended to this premiere.
Yeah,
well.
We got to meet a few
Quick
podcasters, Australian, Asian podcasters. So that was cool.
Yeah, that was really cool. So yeah, I think it was a good experience. So I'm glad that we attended.
Very friendly and positive crowd, I would say. Yeah. For a Melbourne crowd, anyway. But let's turn to darker news, Tavi. So, 3 body problem news. This is via Resonate Voices. The Shanghai First Intermediate People's Court has found Chinese executive Zhu Yao guilty of fatally poisoning Lin Qi, who is the founder of Yuzu Games, which owns the rights to all adaptations of the 3 Body Problem novels, of which there has recently been a TV adaptation on Netflix.
Shit, that's pretty grim.
Yeah, so this death happened maybe a couple of years ago now. I did kind of hear about it through my partner. But essentially, it was sour grapes, really. Like, this one Chinese executive didn't like the fact that this other Chinese executive was owned the rights to this extremely popular and successful book. So he decided to kill him, unfortunately.
It's a very Romance of the Three Kingdoms way to deal with things.
Yeah, which is ironic given the some of the subject matter of the book itself. Very, very grim stuff. I think he replaced the guy's supplements with like poison supplements or something, and a bunch of other people got poisoned as well. But luckily, there was only one fatality from the incident. But yeah,
and that was the intended target.
The intended target, or at least one of them. So yeah, that guy, the murderer, has been sentenced to capital punishment. Because it's China.
Again, that's another, if you've read some Chinese literature, you can kind of see the mentality of the higher ups, I should say, people with power in China. There's a lot of jealousy, backstabbing, and sabotage, and
for sure. And for whatever the reason, murder is not acceptable. I'm not gonna say like what the correct punishment should be, but because that's not my place. But this is a bad guy, and he's being punished for bad deeds. So, I've watched a little bit of the 3 Body Problem on Netflix. It's okay. It's not perfect, I would say. I think the book's probably a lot better, in my opinion. I don't want to be one of those guys that's like, it's not as good as the book, but it's not.
But you should be.
It's not as good as the book. It's not as good as the book.
Something wrong with being those guys.
From what I've seen, anyway. I've only watched a very small part of it, like the first episode.
Yeah. I've been listening to the audiobook of the first novel. I feel like I need to start again and read like the physical book.
There's a lot in it.
There's a lot, and I'm not sure if I've mentioned on the podcast, but I struggle with audiobooks in a sense that I get lulled into a trance, especially if I like the reader's voice.
Yeah.
Because it's almost like music to me sometimes, and then I tend to zone out when it comes to audiobooks.
Yeah.
But when I'm reading like pages, I usually get information. I digest it better. It kind of sinks in a bit more because I've usually got my own voices for each character in my head. And you can like turn back and forth and stuff, and because usually when I'm listening to audiobook, it's while I'm driving, so your attention's sometimes not always there.
I think that's kind of like the benefit and downfall of an audiobook is that you can do it while you're doing other stuff, but at the same time you can only split your attention so many ways before you start like not getting information.
It depends on what you're listening to. If you're listening to like light stuff, but Three Body Problem is really dense. I mean, like there's a plot point which I completely missed. Like I don't know if they've done it in the show, but I wasn't aware that he had like transported into like a game, the game world.
That's my main
and then
thing,
he's talking about like people dehydrating and what the fuck is going on here? And I must have missed that. And then I kind of got it. I was like, all right. It's like, and then the years, the months pass, and what the hell's going on? And then it's like, all right,
it's a pretty big thing. Probably easier to digest in a TV format, to be fair. And I've spoken to a few people about the show, and people seem to like it. But I mean, in general, if you're a fan of like high concept sci-fi, this is like, it's a really unique book and series of books, I would say. Like it's very original. So yeah, definitely worth checking out the book. I can't really speak to the TV show as a whole though. But yeah, terrible news on that side of things. Let's go on to lighter news. Oh, not really that much lighter news, but David Chang, Chili Crunch. Have you heard of this?
I'd only stumbled across it. I think the Fung Bros were talking about it a little bit.
Okay. So this is also via Resonant Voices. Celebrity chef David Chang and his food empire Momofuku are under fire for attempting to trademark the term Chili Crunch. You know what Chili Crunch is?
Not really.
I never really heard of it. Maybe it's an American term or like an American Asian term.
Is it just like the little flaky garlic parts in chili oil? Is that what it is?
Yeah, I think it refers to the sauce in general. So it's like that chili oil with crunchy bits in it.
Okay.
That you sometimes see. Yeah. So this action of trying to trademark the term chili crunch has been described by small businesses as trademark bullying, as it is a commonly used term for this kind of sauce. They say that it is too descriptive a term to have a company own the rights to it.
Yeah, I mean, just on a surface point of view, it is like pretty scummy. It's just like when I think Kim Kardashian or one of those Kardashians tried to like trademark the word kimono, and it's just like fuck off, and so it's just
they
like
tried to trademark the Japanese term for their ancient way of dressing. Okay, is it because the word Kim was in it, and they're like, actually that's my name, you can't say that unless you pay me?
Well, I think like the Funk Bros mentioned it, and like, I think I kind of remember hearing about it ages ago, and at that point it's just like fuck off, man. And like I don't know that much about David Chang. I know he runs like Momofuku or something.
Yeah, that's it.
And he's obviously in a class of wealth at this point. So, like, I'm not sure if it is him himself or his legal team or some like out of touch marketing people that are trying to just be a bit greedy. But I mean, if he steps up and says like, "Look, guys, this wasn't the intention. This was not my decision. It kind of went through me. I will not do this." But I mean, apparently they've sent a lot of cease and desist letters to like small businesses. And it's like, it's greedy. I think it's greedy.
It is going a bit out of your way to make an extra buck through this term that may or may not belong to you. But it's like someone, like imagine if Gongcha tried to trademark the word bubble tea.
Bubble tea.
Like you just wouldn't be able to do it.
So you wouldn't be able to do it. Just fuck off. Yeah, you know. I think, no, I don't agree with it. But I also don't really care about it that much, to be honest.
It's true.
Well.
I hadn't even heard of this kind of, like, I've seen this kind of sauce, but I hadn't heard the term before.
Yeah,
well, from an ethical standpoint, I hope the case falls through, and anyone can call it chili crisp or chili whatever crunch. I don't know. Who cares? Just call it what you want. On to lighter news. The Matrix 5 has been announced and is in development. So this is via the Weekly Planet podcast. The 5th installment in the Matrix franchise is in the works. Little is known about it as of yet, but the new movie is being directed by Drew Goddard. So he directed Cabin in the Woods. So it'll be the first Matrix movie without a Wachowski directing. Lana Wachowski will serve as executive producer. From memory, you didn't like the most recent Matrix film, right?
We
did an episode on it. No. It was like when it first came out, way back when.
A couple of years ago now.
But it's
not a very good movie. No.
Not good, huh? I mean, like, there's been recent talks and conversations about, like, it's basically like commentary on the film industry and how studios would just force sequels, even if the original creators don't want to do it. So that's kind of like how Lana got forced into making the Matrix Resurrections. Is like they said, basically, we're going to do it without you. So you're either in or out. So she's like, I'm in, but I'm going to make a shit movie on purpose, basically, to show people the nature of studios.
I mean, I guess she was successful in that, but it was just like not a very fun watch, to be honest.
Neil Patrick Harris is in that film. Like, I understand her frustrations, but at the same time, don't make a bad movie just to spite studios. Like, if you're not into it, let someone else have a go, you know? Maybe they'll make something good. And maybe this will be good. I don't know.
It could just be a little bit of ego, just having trouble letting go of your baby, I guess.
Because you liked the original trilogy, or at least parts of the original trilogy.
Yeah. Right? Well, I really like the first two. The first one is still like one of the best movies ever made. Reloaded hasn't aged as well, and I've only ever seen Revolutions once in the cinema, and I was just never compelled to watch it again. But yeah, I do like The Matrix as a series and as excitement for this new one. Yeah, like, I'm not really that excited. You only told me about this yesterday, so I don't know.
Where would you like? What kind of movie would you like this to be? Would you like it to take up from Matrix Resurrections, or would you like them to try something maybe newer or like a smaller scale, like Alien Romulus looks like?
Yeah, Alien Romulus looks really good,
doesn't it?
Yeah, to be honest, I haven't really thought about that. I mean, I just wanted them to make it good. I think that's all. You can do whatever the fuck you want.
If they bring Keanu back, I want him to cut his hair and shave his beard. That's what I want. I want original recipe Neo back.
He's probably a bit too old. Yeah, I think the beard and the long hair like hides his age a bit as well.
Maybe he doesn't have the jawline to shave his beard anymore.
Maybe they can like let the Neo storyline to rest. I remember like in the previous episode, it's like I mentioned, why not like try to give Bugs as the main character, and then like on reflection, it's like that's a terrible idea.
I was gonna say, Tavi, have you suddenly turned woke all of a sudden? Who is this new?
It's because post like a lot of shows have tried to do that, and they've been like absolutely terrible. So like, I mean, that's fine. Like I may say ideas, and not all of them are good. Sometimes they're very bad. So it's So I wouldn't do that.
As anything can work as long as you just make it good, right? We always say that, and it sounds like the laziest thing to say, but just make it good.
Just make it good.
I feel like, probably taking it away from Neo is a good idea. Like the Animatrix, for example, had a lot of stories set within the world of the Matrix. And a lot of them are like really interesting concepts that you can kind of expand upon. And some of those concepts have kind of been expanded upon in like the video game, the online video game. So maybe like taking one of those stories and running with it would be a good idea. I think it is a great idea to get it away from the Wachowskis, because honestly, like, good on them for like making the Matrix, but I think they're a bit too close to it now. I think
maybe.
I think it's time for somebody that maybe is a big fan of the Matrix and has grown up around the Matrix to have a shot. Because they don't have that kind of like jaded experience behind the making of the subsequent sequels to kind of, like coming at it from a different perspective, I think is a good idea. And maybe it'll be good. It probably won't be good, but maybe it will. You can always hope.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens.
We'll see what happens.
I tend to get a bit less excited for sequel announcements and things these days. It's kind of like, just make new shit, you know?
Well, that's what Lana Wachowski would say, right? Just make new shit.
Yeah, just make new shit, yeah.
Well, what do you think about this, Tavi, for sequels? The Roundup Punishment gets a release date, an Australian release date. So this is via Don Lee's official Instagram account. The Roundup Punishment, the fourth installment in Ma Dong-suk's big punching cop drama series, has an Australian release date, which is the only country we care about, really. April 24th. So that's soon.
Oh, really? That's really soon.
Yeah.
I guess we're gonna have to scramble and get an episode recorded on that because I'm looking forward to it.
We love those films.
I definitely want to see Ma Dong-suk like knock out a few more people. It's
Return of Jung Isu. Yeah. We love this series. It's basically a cop drama, pretty simple, pretty like small stakes, but it stars Korea's biggest man, just throwing hooks and jabs and knocking out people in one punch. And it's really fun. Like this series is a whole lot of fun. We've done episodes on all of the series. So I'll link them here if you want to have a listen to those. And if you're a fan of action cinema, you should watch these because they're so much fun. Probably pretty hard to find, I imagine. Do you know where you can watch them?
Yeah, but you know.
Okay. Nothing that you want to officially disclose. Wink.
Yeah, they're kind of only ever really available when they're at the cinema here, aren't they?
And they get a pretty short theatrical release in Australia, unfortunately.
Yeah, because nobody likes Asian movies.
But people should watch them and people should talk about them so we get more options on how to watch them. This is like his bread and butter now as well, Ma Dong-suk. He does other stuff, but I don't think there's anything as successful as this franchise for him.
Yeah, nah. That's fair. It's a good franchise. Yeah, easy.
Almost made him like a meme in China. Have you heard about him being like his popularity in China?
I think you mentioned this a little while ago, but I forgot about it.
I think it stemmed from like there was this person who was trying to like negotiate online with like their mechanic or something, and their mechanic was kind of like dicking them around. And then they changed their display pic to a picture of Ma Dong-suk, and the mechanic immediately agreed to all their demands. And then from there he kind of became a meme, where it's like, he's just the toughest bloke in the world, which is maybe not untrue. He's a pretty tough bloke.
He's a pretty tough guy, man.
But also his online presence just portrays like a really sweet and kind man as well. So I guess that's the humor in it. And he's having a wedding soon. He's having a wedding in May. So congratulations, Ma Dong-suk.
Good on him.
We love you. And look forward to our Roundup Punishment episode coming soon. All right, last bit of news, Tavi. You sent me this actually. There's a new trailer for a Hindi language film called Kill. Do you want to give people a quick rundown of what this movie seems to be?
I mean, I'd only just stumbled across it on Facebook when I was scrolling through, and it's just, this looks cool. It's just basically the Indian raid on the train. And according to the trailer, I don't know anything about the main character. It's that he seems to be trying to protect some girl or trying to get somewhere and just killing a bunch of guys on a train in a very badass and apparently very violent manner. So this is all I know. The trailer looks really cool. A lot of pretty brutal looking fight scenes, a lot of very kind of Indian machoism in there. So yeah, I'm excited. I like to see that. This is the kind of stuff that excites me. Just a new scope of action film from a different part of the world. I mean, you and I have had some experience with some Indian cinema. We've covered a few. We haven't done one for a little while. Yeah, so yeah, we'll definitely give this one a watch, and if it's good, we'll probably talk about it. I think you and I will probably like it.
It looks really good. It looks really fun.
Yeah.
The action, it basically looks like The Raid or like even The Night Comes for Us in terms of its violence. Like, I think you linked me to a censored trailer. I don't know if there is a Red Band trailer out there, but what I liked about this trailer is that it cut away from a lot of the gore. So you can tell that it's going to be a really gory movie when it has to cut away from from the impacts. Do you think this one is going to go full Bollywood? Do you think there's going to be a dance sequence in there somewhere?
Yeah, probably. I think so. I think a lot of people watch these films because they do enjoy those dance numbers. I was a bit mixed on them at first, but I do actually enjoy them.
I love them. Yeah.
At points.
Alcoholia, man. So, it's a banger.
Yeah, Alcoholia is good. Yeah. So I think I'm used to that aesthetic because, like, most people know that I'm not the biggest fan of musicals in film, but I think Indian cinema does it in a way which is kind of adds to that cultural touch, even though maybe some. I can't speak for the Indian people themselves because we're not Indian. I'm assuming some people might find it a bit tropey, or some people might find it as a kind of a cultural aspect to their cinema. Either way, I enjoy it.
There's probably a fine line between tradition and trope. But I mean, they're really fun. And I think people that enjoy film tend to enjoy them as well. Didn't like Triple R win something for like Natu Natu? Was it an Academy
Award?
Award?
Didn't it?
Yeah, I think
won the Academy Award. Yeah.
So
rightly so. Natu Natu was great.
It's also very good. Yeah.
Why not, man? Natu Natu. Yeah. I watched that movie for a little while. It's a very I think I watched it at some point last year. I watched it with mum when it was still on Netflix. And it's like,
very fun movie. Very fun and long movie. Probably good background movie, I reckon. Because there's a lot of music in it. So, you can kind of immerse yourself in it. A lot of visuals and music and bromance. It's good. It's got it all.
Yeah. But I mean, speaking of a return to form when it comes to Indian films, even though the film we're talking about today is set in India and is written and directed by Dev Patel, who is British Indian. It is not an Indian film. It is an American production.
American production.
John Peel.
So this is Monkey Man.
Yeah. So, I mean, the basic premise of the story is that I'm led to believe it is some kind of loose adaptation of the Hanuman legend or fable.
Okay.
But I'm not familiar with that. And I've read just some of that in the marketing, but the basic plot is Dev Patel's character, who is known as Kid or Bobby or simply Monkey Man. He's kind of like a fighter who is taking a lot of losses, and because that's part of his job is to take beatings and bleed. But the general plot of the movie is he's trying to get revenge against a corrupt politician and a corrupt police officer who are responsible for the death of his mother and his village in a forest where he used to live in.
Yep.
Very, very simple plot.
Yeah. Classic revenge story. A man in a fictional Indian city wants to get revenge on a man with a mustache. So we will talk non-spoilers first and give you a spoiler warning before going into spoilers. Honestly, it's not that spoiler heavy of a movie, but if you do want to go into it fresh, maybe go watch it. It's in cinemas now, I think everywhere. So go watch it before coming back to this, I guess. But we'll drop a spoiler warning anyway.
Yeah, so this is Dev Patel's debut directing role.
Feature length.
It's come a bit of a long way since Prince Zuko in The Last Airbender.
From he was Zuko.
There was a really funny clip of him at some award ceremony or somewhere, some
red carpet,
yeah. And then there was a fan that wanted him to sign a copy of The Last Airbender.
Yeah,
and he's like talking to the fans like, "Oh, I'm really sorry about this movie. It's pretty shit, isn't it?"
That fan must have been trolling, huh? Had to have been trolling.
Yeah, probably.
Nobody likes that movie.
I don't think. I only know one person that likes that movie.
Oh yeah, I forgot about her. Yeah, you're right.
I don't know anyone that likes the movie. But I mean, yeah. What did you think of Monkey Man?
This film had a $10 million budget somehow, which is on the very low end.
Very, very low. I mean, it was relegated to just being dumped onto Netflix or some kind of
apparently
service.
Netflix bought the distribution rights for 30 mil, but then they were trying to shop it around to other studios because they thought some of the stuff was a bit too confronting for Indian audiences. Probably the political stuff, I would say.
Yeah, I'd like to actually talk about some of that, and not just the political stuff as well.
Yeah. So eventually Jordan Peele connected with Dev Patel, and Universal and Monkey Paw ended up acquiring it for $10 million. That's 30. Netflix has paid $30 million for it. Universal has paid $10 million for it, and it's made $10 million at the US opening box office. So it's already made its money. Its budget back,
and then
some. So big win. Apparently, it was shot a long time ago, like kind of during pandemic times, 2020.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah. Extremely troubled production.
Yeah. Yes, I've heard about it. Yeah.
Yeah. Due to the pandemic, the filming had to be moved from India to Indonesia. Originally, he had like the John Wick stunt people working on it, but they had to step back because of the pandemic. Patel fucking broke his hand during one of the first fight scenes they filmed.
About that,
the bathroom fight, I think. And he also broke 2 of his toes when a stuntman accidentally dropped an axe on his foot. He also got an eye infection from lying on that dirty ass bathroom floor for too long.
Oh yeah.
But like you wouldn't necessarily be able to tell all of that from watching this film. I think it's a really solid effort, especially for his first directorial debut as well. Patel is an accomplished martial artist, like outside of movies. So, and he says this movie is like heavily inspired by Asian action films.
You could definitely tell,
pretty
especially
evident, right?
in the climax. Yeah, I mean, he was talking about how I think to a particular reporter that he was inspired by a lot of Korean action films, and you can really see it in the climax, which like for me was the best part of the movie. But we'll talk a bit about that later. Yeah.
There's a few different flavors in there. Yeah, like the climax is very slick, like more of your Korean action.
Yeah.
But there's also like the underground fight scenes that you mentioned, which is more reminiscent of like an Indonesian action film or a Thai action film. It reminded me a lot of Ong Bak.
Yeah, Ong Bak. Yeah, it's a very gritty movie, and I could definitely tell that this was like a production on the lower budget and something where they probably had to bend and cut some corners. Because I did really enjoy this movie, but there's a lot of flaws.
Definitely not perfect.
It's probably a little bit too long for what it is.
Okay.
And while the shaky cam does add to the kind of the grit and the uncertainty of like the first half or the first act of the movie, it does get a bit grating.
It's a bit much.
It's hard to see the action.
Yeah.
And I think this is because I don't want to make excuses for the movie, but you know, from what it seems like and what you just told me, then they weren't able to do everything that they could at points. You know, they've had to compromise.
Oh yeah, definitely. There's definitely limitations there. Like the camera work I think does let down of some of the action scenes, but a lot of it is due to circumstances. Like there's a bit where he's running down a stairwell, right, and it switches to first person for a bit. And that's literally because they couldn't fit like their cameras in that stairwell. So they had to. So it's just shit like that.
Apparently they shot some of this on iPhone or something. Yeah, they just really had to cheat. Like, they just had to do what they can.
Which is not the worst thing in the world. Like you can make that work, but I think you need like a consistent aesthetic, right? And I think some of this movie is a bit inconsistent in its delivery.
There's a lot of like close-up shots, like. And I think that's just because maybe they weren't able to have like the wide shots of the scenery, so it gets a bit like, I'm not going to say lazy. It looks a bit cheap in a sense that they're not able to show like the environment as much at points.
Okay.
There's a really long lull in the movie before the climax.
Right in the middle of the film, huh? It slows down
and
dramatically.
It really
at a point.
slows down. I think as frenetic and as gritty as the movie is, it is like slow. There's not an immediate action sense. Like it opens up with him fighting, in his underground fight club with Sharlto Copley being Sharlto Copley.
Yeah, Sharlto Copley's in this.
He's very being like a typical overactor that he is.
Which kind of makes sense because Dev Patel didn't want to originally direct this, and his first choice in directors was Neil Blomkamp. So kind of makes sense that Sharlto Copley makes an appearance.
Yeah. Yeah. But yeah, it opens up with that. But then he's not immediately a John Wick. And I think they kind of reference that when he goes to buy a gun. It's like he goes to one of the arms dealers, and like some of my like kind of favorite scenes in movies where they go to the arms dealer and it's like, you want guns? I got guns.
Yeah,
it's just
like, a wall of guns.
Just like
a clickety clacking of like armaments.
Yeah, it's not a big thing, but it's always fun to watch. And in this movie, the guy's like, I got the John Wick gun. And Dev Patel's like, I need something smaller. And it's just like a revolver.
Yeah. I think that was his attempt to kind of distance himself or his movie from
from John Wick.
John Wick, which this isn't John. I've heard this compared to John Wick. Like people say
it's compared to John Wick a lot, but it's not really.
It's not really. I think it's more.
It's not really.
Like the action scenes are not as slick as John Wick. There's definitely a lot less gun fu. And it's more like scrappy, I would say. Like there's a lot of like improvised weapons and a lot of biting and stuff like that.
It's very like roughneck. Yeah,
it's a bit more desperate, I think.
Yeah, the first act of the movie, all the fight scenes in the first act are more scrappy, more gritty. So the shaky cam adds, even though it's a bit much. But then the second, there is a climax which is a lot more of the. I would say it's more Korean, like burly brawls and knives involved, and a lot of like and which I enjoyed. But I mean, like going back to what I was saying before with picking out the flaws, I think this is a really enjoyable film. I think it's oozing with atmosphere. There's a number of really cool shots. I think as long as the movie might be, it is worth sticking it through to the climax. Where there's a lot of like stuff that I liked in terms of aesthetic and like in terms of sonic wise, in terms of sound and music that they play.
Yeah.
So this movie has a lot of personality.
It's got style.
Which I really enjoy. It's got style.
Style.
And you can see that Dev Patel was having a lot of fun in the last. In terms of his creative vision.
Except for that bit where he broke his hand and got an eye infection.
Yeah. But in terms of like his aesthetics, he definitely is like, I'm influenced by this stuff and I want to put it on screen.
Yeah.
Whether it maybe does make sense to the movie or not, it just looks cool. Yeah.
Even the legend of Hanuman that you mentioned, that is a story that kind of resonated with him when he was a child, when he was a child. So like he just really enjoyed the imagery of that. Like he's pretty westernized in general, but that part of his like Indian heritage really stuck with him. And he kind of likened it to like fictional characters like Superman as well. So it was pretty cool, like seeing that influence from his life leaking into the movie as well. I did enjoy like a lot of the Indian culture and symbolism in it.
Yeah. Well, actually, I want to talk a little bit about that. I think this movie is yet to be released in India. Apparently, they're making a few edits and some censorship to it because there's some. I think the violence in this movie
is not the problem. I would say
it's what I think it is a little bit.
Okay.
Like it definitely ramps up, but there's also like, sex trafficking to an extent.
Sure.
So it's pretty like, I mean, from our experience with Indian cinema, there is not a lot of, I guess, sexual conduct. Nonetheless, it's not that raunchy.
I guess
like there's
not.
a bit where he like stumbles across like this guy like, you know, like doing anal to this chick.
Sure. I mean, Gangs of Wassapa had a bit, right? Did it?
Yeah, I was gonna say because we watched Gangs of Wassapa, which were really good movies, and we actually did an episode on that. But unfortunately, the audio was not salvageable. So we wanted to release that episode last year because we heard some of our fans of some of our Indian cinema reviews that Gangs of Wassapa is quite good.
Yeah.
And it's really good. Just a quick shout out to that movie. It's a fantastic movie. But you know, a lot of this movie does have a lot of the typical, I guess, aesthetically Indian trope of, you know, poor neighborhoods and kids on the street and stuff. So I have seen some comments just here and there, like on the trailers and stuff, how it's like, you know, we're kind of sick of this kind of portrayal of India. It's such a very kind of
Western gaze
westernized.
of India.
It's a very Western gaze of what India's like. Yeah, like, oh, you know, everyone's a thief, or it's really dirty and that kind of thing.
Yeah.
Like I wonder what the reception to this would be, because I really like this movie, but it's also in a sense that I give Crazy Rich Asians a lot of shit for sparking off this view of every single Asian being a super capitalist rich bastard.
Yep.
And being quite shallow. So, and then kind of like, this is a movie that is being made by an American production, and it basically gives like the Western gaze more fuel to add to this caricature of their view of a certain race. So I wonder if this movie is reinforcing that, or if most people, or if some of the Indian audiences like this is either like accurate or not accurate. Like, I don't know. Whether or not I should feel bad for liking this movie or that kind of thing.
It's definitely a sentiment that we can kind of relate to. Like, we always talk about it with Western Asian cinema, how like there is kind of like an image that is just in every single fucking movie. An image and a message.
You not listen to BTS? You love BTS?
Yeah.
You love boba? You love boba and bubble tea? Actually, shout out to back to White Fever. Arcing it back to a bit. I will have to give it credit in the sense that they didn't mention BTS. They mentioned Esper, actually.
There you go.
And there was no bubble tea. Thank God.
Yeah. That's what you want, isn't it, Tavi?
Not every Asian fucking listens to BTS and drinks.
You want some more niche Asian references in this kind of stuff,
I think
right?
so.
You want a Hmong person in it, for example, right?
yeah. But I mean, back to Monkey Man. Like, I wonder, like, sorry, I cut you off for what you were saying.
No, I was just gonna say, I can kind of see where criticism like that is coming from, and can totally relate to that. I don't know if that it definitely doesn't detract from my enjoyment of this movie. If there were like lots of this kind of movie, you know, and they were all kind of like portraying India this way and like kind of pushing these messages, then I might get kind of sick of it. But to be honest, I don't think we see it that often in Western cinema. Like, I don't think we see a movie about India that often in Western cinema.
Yeah, I mean, like,
Slumdog Millionaire.
Parts of I mean, in Extraction, is he in Bangladesh in that movie? Even though, they're not the same country.
Or maybe Bangladesh.
I
can't remember.
Yeah, but they kind of, it's like that Indian gaze kind of makes this look a bit more like a monolith. It's just whether it's hard to tell the difference between, is that, you know, India, is that Sri Lanka, is that like Bangladesh. It's like when we complain, it's like, you know, it's Japanese. Isn't fucking like Mongolian beef from Japan or something? Or is it fucking is teriyaki from China? So it's hard because like when these it's sometimes it's good to see like that Western money into these productions that are based in kind of whatever country that they want to set. It's kind of hard to balance the line of authenticity, you know, and it's kind of like there is a level of responsibility that you are a big studio and you are kind of bringing this sort of view to a large audience, and then people who are not familiar with these countries. And like you and I, we're admittedly not that familiar. We've seen a few Indian films, but like, we're definitely not experts, you know.
We imagine that not all of India is like this place. But I think, at the same time, it's kind of just the setting of the film. Like, we do get to see a variety of locations here. We get to see the rich people doing their rich people stuff in the hotel. Like, we get to see his, like, forest village at times, and that stuff looks really nice. There's the temple that he gets transported to at a point in the film.
From the stuff that we've seen that has come from India, and then comparing it to this movie, I would say that there are similar aesthetics. That it looks quite similar. I'm not in a position to say whether it's authentic or not. I can only leave that up to people from India. But just as a comparison, they look similar, and they both look really cool. Because you could easily go down the route of like Bullet Train, where it's like, oh yeah, this is set in Japan, and it's like there's no Japanese people and everyone's white, that kind of thing. Yeah. So,
but bearing in mind as well, like, this is a fictional city. It's not a real city. So any parallels that you're drawing, just remember, it's not a real place. But definitely it's a point well given, Tavi. And I don't really know how to feel about it. All I know is that I did enjoy this movie for the most part. And my main criticisms are not based on that, but more like other things. I think it's a little bit messy at times. Yeah,
it's definitely, I think they put in a bit too much because, you are talking about the political messaging that might be controversial over there. I'm not that familiar with it. I don't know much about it. There's also like the criticism of the trans community in this movie, which I didn't even actually realize that he was joining. Like he comes across this group of like trans warriors or something.
Well, it's like a community. They kind of nurse him back to health after bad stuff happens to him, and they're like they're camping out in this temple of Adana Rishvara. Sorry for my pronunciation, but it is a deity depicted as half god Shiva and half goddess Parvati.
They play a little bit in the climax as well, and I thought it was cool. Like, I like that addition.
I thought it was cool, but a little bit random. If I'm gonna be honest,
it's random. That's what I was saying. Like, it's there might be a bit too much. Like, I've seen some commenters of this movie like, "Oh, Dev Patel's gone fucking woke and shit." Like, I don't know.
Oh, really? A comment on the internet about something being too woke, Tavi?
It's fucking I don't think it is. I would definitely say it's random because it kind of just shoved in there. So whether that was the intention or not, but I don't think it really changed my enjoyment of the movie.
It's a part of a larger theme of like injustice, I think, because these people they've been driven out of their homes basically due to prejudice. So I think like,
which is an overarching theme.
It's one of them because like this movie is like a personal revenge plot where like Dev Patel's character is trying to beat up mustache guy that killed his mum. But there's also like they also kind of position his character as like a warrior for justice as well. And this, like, I'm not opposed to the idea, but I just don't, like you said, this movie was too long, but at the same time, I don't think there was enough time really dedicated to fleshing out.
That's I would agree with that. Yeah, it's too long and too many plot points that kind of were building up to something and then didn't go anywhere. Like, there's a number of characters that get a little bit left by the wayside.
We'll probably talk about them in spoilers. But the political side of things kind of ended up feeling a bit half-baked, and the movie kind of felt a little bit unfocused as a result of that. Like, I would have probably either just stripped it down and focus on the personal revenge, or like lengthen the movie in order to develop that plot line a bit more.
Yeah, I think at this point it was just removing some plot elements, I reckon, because the movie is 2 hours and 10 minutes. I caught this at a 9:10 session, and when we got out, like, it was like this. wasn't the city, but it was in Coburg was like fucking empty, man. Like I'd never seen, like I've watched late sessions pretty often at the cinema, but it's like when we were driving home, it's like, man, there's like no cars, there's no one around. It's like this movie. And I got back at home at like 12 o'clock. This was a long movie for this kind of story. Yeah.
I mean, they should have gone full Indian cinema and just done a 4-hour movie with an intermission in the middle. Just chuck a couple of songs in there, you know?
Fuck yeah. I mean, I think they were probably struggling. Like they probably didn't have the budget for that. Yeah.
Probably not.
The funny thing is, I think like an Indian production would probably have a bigger budget than this movie because they'd have probably. All the telcos over there and all the other corporations funding it. Like every time we've watched an Indian film, like it's 10 minutes of like showing all the brands of all the investors that have gone into like funding the movie. Yeah, except maybe for Gangs of Wasseypur. Yeah, I like on hindsight, I really like that movie. I think if you like Monkey Man and you want like a long crime epic, I would definitely go watch Gangs of Wasseypur. Yeah, that's a really cool movie.
Yeah, it's like just India's answer to The Godfather.
Yeah,
I would say. But yeah, Monkey Man, I think all in all, pretty impressive directorial debut. If you're a fan of action, like particularly Asian action, I think you'll probably like this. Yeah. If you're a fan of Indian cinema, don't expect that, I would say, because it's not that.
This is not, it's not an Indian film.
Yeah,
it's such a weird, definition. Like I remember doing a bit of like an essay on this when I was studying film and like what makes a film a national film. Just like is it the setting? Is it who's making the film? Is it who is funding it? You know, it's like because you could say Great Gatsby is an Australian film. Right. Or even Elvis is an Australian film, or Late Night with the Devil is an Australian film, but they're American stories. So it's tricky. Yeah, it's a hard definition.
Yeah. But there's no song, so it's not an Indian film.
Yeah.
I guess shout out to the music. Some of the music I quite liked actually in this film.
Yeah, I actually really enjoyed the music in this movie. Yeah. There's definitely a particular. It's not really a track, but it's kind of like a breakdown in the climax.
Yeah. There's a bit where he's like punching a sandbag and like somebody's playing the bongos.
And the drumming. That's fun. Yeah. No, I would definitely recommend this movie. I definitely would love to see more of these kind of productions where they feature kind of like a foreign, kind of like a lesser known like foreign country, even though everyone knows India, but like, you know what I'm saying? Like kind of this more
not America
niche style product. Yeah, not America. And to give someone like and like kudos to Jordan Peele, who saw like Dev's vision and loved it and has kind of allowed him to, you know, make what he wants to make. Even though if it's not perfect, it's oozing with his personality and influences. And for me as a filmmaker, that's what I really like to see. Yeah. Like these days, I don't really mind if a plot is imperfect or if a story is not the best. If it's like someone is at least trying, and if I vibe with the influences, then I definitely will still like really like the movie, even if there's a lot of flaws. So yeah, I want to see more of these kind of movies like this, and I definitely it is it's definitely a very violent movie actually at some points. I remember there's some people in the theater, like some people like near me, I could hear them like visibly, not visibly, like really like exasperate after a few moments within the film. They were like, I think they were struggling, which I found quite surprising, because for me it wasn't that violent, but if you think about it, it gets pretty intense.
It's somewhere between the raid and The Night Comes for Us, I would say. If you've seen those two,
I would say it's just below the raid one.
Okay.
In terms, because the first act of all the action scenes, because it's super shaky, you can't see that much. But it is really, it ramps up a lot in the climax, which is, it's what made the movie for me. If the climax wasn't good, then I may not have recommended this movie as much as I was thinking about. Yeah,
I mean,
but
I could watch action films like this for days, I reckon, like without getting tired of them. Good on Dev Patel for putting the work in, getting ripped for the duration of this filming, which is probably pretty arduous.
Good on, like, this is kind of like, you could admittedly say it was a bit of a passion or ego project or whatever it is. It doesn't matter. I enjoyed it. A lot of fun.
Chris Pang should do one of these films. He should get ripped for one of these films, I reckon.
Yeah. You know what, like, we've got some, like, stories about hitmen that we've, like, talked to each other about and stuff.
Yeah.
You know what, just get in touch with us, Chris.
You're probably
Pang.
in pretty good shape, right, Chris?
He's done martial arts before as well.
Yeah.
In Crouching Tiger, Hidden Dragon too.
There you go.
He can definitely do it. I wonder if he's on the older end of things. Yeah.
Shall we talk a little bit of spoilers for this film?
Yeah, why not?
I mean, yeah, again, not too spoiler heavy of a film, I think. But he does ditch the monkey mask pretty quickly, huh?
Yeah.
It's like the best imagery in the movie, and he's wearing it for like a second in the climax.
Yeah. Especially when he's like kind of bathed in that red light. It looked cool.
Yeah,
if he was wearing the monkey mask.
It wouldn't make much sense for him to do his revenge wearing the mask, but like it just looks fucking cool. Like him in the suit with the white monkey mask on top. Amazing visual that they should have carried on for at least a bit of the climax.
Yeah, I feel like they put all the stops into the last, like all the budget went into the last 20 minutes of the movie when it becomes, the camera work becomes a lot less shaky. And you can see a lot more. It becomes more like of that Korean burly brawl-esque kind of style of fighting where he's one guy taking on like a bunch of dudes. Because at the start of the movie, he's not like a very good fighter. He gets hurt a lot.
Yep.
I mean, like we haven't talked too much about the fight scenes, but there's a lot of environmental damage, which we always enjoy in these movies. And yeah, it hurts. It looks like it hurts.
A lot of improvised weapons, a lot of like picking up glass off the floor and shivving someone with it. There's a lot of desperation, like biting people when they get too close kind of thing. It's very visceral.
But there's a number of characters, like we said, that kind of get left by the wayside.
There's a prostitute that he likes.
The comic relief guy. The prostitute, and she kind of doesn't really do anything. And then there's a bit where they kind of have some kind of recognition of some sort.
Yeah, she's like built up in the first half as like somebody that's going to do something. And I think like all that happens is she just beams someone on the head in the final fight scene.
Well, the person she beams is kind of funny. The Queen character, what's her name?
The Queen pimp.
Mama?
I think it's Queenie. Yeah, Queenie is her name.
Queenie, yeah. She's really funny because she's just like swearing a lot. Like in the kind of like Indian accent.
Yeah.
There's a lot of from a lot of my Indian friends that I've hung out with, like they often say like bed chort and mata chort a lot. So it's kind of like the
anching or the shibal of India.
The anching or the shibal of India. So it was really funny to hear like these kind of swear words get dropped. It's like, I've heard that before from some friends.
Swearing in foreign languages. Like it's fun.
Yeah. But yeah, like all in all, the climax for me, like I think before the climax, I was wondering whether or not I was enjoying this movie because, like I said, there's a really long lull.
Yeah.
It happens after the car crash.
So after he has his first assassination attempt of Rana, the mustache guy who's trying to get. He fails that attempt and then has to go on the run, and it leads to a pretty good car chase where he's like driving a tuk-tuk through the streets of India. And then he gets in a massive accident, gets shot, gets stabbed and shit. And then he wakes up in a village occupied by, well, like a community occupied by this transgender community. I think it's a pretty big thing in India. They're called hijra. This kind of like third gender that is neither male nor female in India. And they nurse him back to health, and they help him discover himself through like a hallucinogenic substance. He has like a flashback / vision, and then he has a training montage where he gets strong.
Yeah. pretty fun training montage. Like, honestly, I like all the stuff that's in that lull. I think it is still a good good thing to watch. It's still a good story.
Yeah, I think because the first half is quite like panicky, yeah, and then it slows down a lot, and it kind of gives you a bit of breathing room. But at the same time,
even before the first assassination attempt, it's still like pretty slow.
Yeah, there's a lot of infiltration.
Don't really see a proper, You don't see a lot of action, and I guess. I'm thinking about like a ballerina as well. Like, there's not that much action in that movie either, but it's a much shorter film, and I think the slickness of it was kind of carried its way through. Whether like in Monkey Man, there is a lot of setup, as we were saying, like the prostitute character, meeting Queenie,
that Alfonso guy.
And a lot of it, there's not a big payoff to some of these plot points.
Alfonso doesn't do anything in the second half of the film.
Well, who's Alfonso again?
So he's the little ratty guy that
so
kind of gives him access.
Guy,
And then like their relationship is kind of rushed as well. Like first he's kind of a dick to him, and then like all of a sudden they're best friends.
They're chummy,
and then like
he's abandoned.
So to the point where Dev Patel's character like stops in the middle of a chase so he can get into the car. So Alfonso can get into the car. That seems like pretty out of character.
That's it. Yeah, it seemed kind of random because like you weren't really that attached to him in the first place.
Yeah, and it's a pretty desperate situation as well.
Yeah. So like there's nothing to suggest that they were like good friends.
But you kind of think that he's going to get some kind of redemption in the end, or like he's going to do something in the second half, but he just doesn't.
So I think this is what we're talking about, the limitations where they probably had stuff written for these characters, but they just didn't get around to filming it. Or maybe the film already had enough pacing issues and it was just too long.
Yeah.
So, yeah. But, like, to be honest, it didn't really bother me that much, except that maybe it padded out the film.
How do you feel about transgender ninjas?
I thought they were cool.
Yeah.
Actually,
jangling away as they're doing stealth takedowns.
they were like, there's a bit where like Dev Patel, he goes, it's in the climax, and he's just killed a bunch of guys in the kitchen, and a pretty cool fight scene, and he's just like stabbed a bunch of dudes, and it was really awesome. He's in that very kind of slick Korean like suit style of fighting. It's very, you can see Man from Nowhere references for sure.
Yeah.
And the music is quite like cinematic and
where
stuff.
He like
and then,
puts the big knife down in favor for like two smaller knives. That's very tactical.
And the last scene is very much like that climax in A Bittersweet Life. He's in that like kind of restaurant area,
right,
but he's surrounded by a bunch of dudes, and it seems like he's like super outnumbered. But then the Indian transgender ninjas come, and then like the music switches to like nu metal. I'm like, yeah, man, just fucking give me more of that shit. It was like, it was very enjoyable to watch, whether or not the music had fit within the context of the film or whether it's culturally relevant. I don't think Dev Patel cared.
Yeah.
I don't know what kind of music he's into, but it's like, I feel like if Dev Patel talks to the composer and it's like, what do you want? And Dev's like, nu metal.
Yeah, this is straight from like the 2000s era Jet Li playbook.
Yeah, that's it. I thoroughly enjoyed that scene, and the ninjas start like killing a bunch of guys, and then he's killing a bunch of guys, and I was just like,
super
man,
fun.
Just like it was super fun.
It does kind of come out of nowhere. Like I would have liked to make it a bit more like fitting. I feel like they should have spent a bit more time in the training montage to kind of, where he's like maybe training up that community to do some fighting.
Oh, you kind of see
there's like one
there's
of
a
them
suggestion.
punches. Yeah,
there's a suggestion that is punching the bag.
It's not enough.
Suddenly
But
the guy says that they were descended from warriors or whatever.
Oh, okay.
So
I missed that line. I think so.
Yeah, because the guy's like, we used to be a tribe of warriors, but like over the years. But I think I mean, you can't just say, "Oh, I'm a warrior," and then you just suddenly a ninja throwing like knives and shit.
Like they had the opportunity to throw a bit of training of the village into it, but they just didn't do it. I think that would have helped a lot to kind of foreshadow that that turn of them showing up in the last fight scene. But as it was, I felt it was a little bit random, but very enjoyable to watch anyway.
Yeah, it's random, but I think at that point Dev didn't care. It's just like, yeah, it's cool. Just chuck it in. It's fine. Don't worry about it. It's fun.
So the main climax, though, it's kind of like a what's it called? A game of death situation where he's going up the tower and beating up like levels of people. So
there's definitely a cool scene in the elevator when he's like fighting the two guys with the knife, and then he's like, it's definitely, this is like straight up Man from Nowhere.
Yep.
Or Ajashi as it's called in Korea.
Yep.
It's just like he's like slowly like
pushing the knife into the
guy's throat.
Yeah,
that was when that was when I heard like the other the audience member next to us they were just like,
yeah.
it was a lot. It was a lot for them.
Very good sound design
good.
in that scene.
I'm like, good. Watch more of this shit, man. It's awesome.
Yeah, it's excellent. But then that leads him to his fight against Rana. So the main focus of his personal revenge story. So this is the man that beat, choked, and burned his mum alive. So when Dev beats him up, it is pretty satisfying. Very satisfying, I would say.
It is satisfying. Yeah. It's quite cathartic. Yeah.
Not a super even fight, which I think makes it maybe more satisfying because he just kind of schools the guy.
Yeah, it's definitely that kind of revenge fantasy. Like a lot of the imagery in this climax is really cool. Like a lot of bathed in very strong like reds
primary
colors, and there's like splashes like of blood on his face. Like it's just really cool. And I think this last fight scene is probably like a little bit better than average when it comes to these final fights, because sometimes when the precursor to the final fight is a really fun massive burly brawl with a lot of shit going on, sometimes the final fight is a bit of a letdown.
Sure.
And that actually kind of happens in the first John Wick when he just fights like the Russian mob boss.
Right.
It was kind of underwhelming.
Yep.
But then maybe even in John Wick 2 when he just fights Ruby Rose, just schools her, and it's kind of underwhelming.
Yep.
But then like in John Wick 3 and 4, it's actually, no, in John Wick 4 is also not that good either if you think about it. But John Wick 3 is really cool.
Yeah, John Wick 3 fights Mark Dacascos, so it's fine.
Mark Dacascos and the two Indonesian ninjas.
Yep.
But in this movie, I think that's pretty satisfying. It's kind of harkening back to the more grittier style that you first see in the movie. Just that kind of more frantic fighting. Yeah.
I think the impacts as well, they feel big. It's probably down to the sound design and just the physical acting side of things. And the setting is pretty cool as well. There's like a lot of mirrors around as well, so they play around with that a bit. So that, I really enjoyed that climax. But there's also another bad guy for him.
Yeah. We'll talk about this guy a little bit. The political leader.
Big boss. So Baba Shakti is the character's name.
Yeah.
So he's a guru that has kind of like gone from the bottom to the top. He is like kind of pulling the strings from the shadows. He's more of a religious and spiritual leader than a politician, but also he is just a politician. So he's kind of behind a lot of the decision making that is leading to this kind of corruption and prejudice and stuff. So while like Rana is like the personal revenge target, Baba Shakti represents more of like the political revenge side of things.
Yeah, the overarching, the political commentary aspect of it. Yeah. Well, I mean, you were saying before that like India's making a couple of changes, and there was some controversy because of this particular figure.
Okay.
I don't know much about the situation because I've read that he's supposed to be like a representation of some political leader, but it's just, I've only done like a surface level look at it.
Sure.
But in narrative wise and story wise, I'm not sure if he should have been the last dude. Like he's pretty prototypical of like the spiritual leader that tries to weasel his way out by using like tactics of like smooth talking the main character of temptation and all this other kind of shit. But then when he's on the back foot, he's like begging for his life. What first comes to mind is like in Mandy when Nicholas this is probably like almost a reference because the lighting's very similar. Yeah, it's like Mandy, where like the main guy goes off on a massive spiel about like the duality of nature and the religious and sin and all that kind of shit. And please don't kill me. It kind of turns. Yeah. So not as extreme as in Mandy, but pretty similar. So yeah, because he's kind of just introduced like later, like maybe halfway through the film. So I think it might have been a bit too much. I think the final battle should have just been between Kid and
Rana.
I think it's Ravi Singh. That's the main
Rana Singh.
Rana Singh. Yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think like this plot point would have worked better if Dev's character had more interactions with Baba Shakti prior to this scene. Like, because Baba Shakti gave the order to Rana to burn down the village. But like Dev's character shouldn't know that. Like that's just something that he wasn't privy to.
Yeah, I think he just kind of assumes it. Yeah.
Well, you see it happen in the hallucination he has, but like realistically, he wouldn't have that information. So there's not really any personal animus towards Baba Shakti for him.
Yeah. I think so. Yeah.
And like, so it does just purely represent like the political vigilante side of things. But like, because that plot point wasn't very strong, like this revenge kind of felt a little bit hollow.
And
I
think so.
Because this is pretty familiar in a lot of action films, is like you have a big fight scene, but then there is a bigger bad guy up the top who isn't really a fighter. So we see that in like the Raid 2, for example, where like the big bad is, what's his name? The guy that he's mates with.
Bejo.
Yeah, so he has an awesome fight scene with like the hammer girl and baseball bat guy. He has an awesome fight scene with the assassin character, but then there's like a final guy that he has to take down, and it's a little bit like
it's just like
visually underwhelming, but like it fits with the narrative. But that works because those two characters have a relationship, so it is more impactful when he does have to kill him. Whereas in this, Dev's character and this Baba Shakti character don't really have a relationship. So I don't think it works in the same way.
It's not as strong as when he's beating up Rama Singh.
Yeah.
It's funny going back. I'm not sure. Is Queenie like his wife or they're just associates?
No, she's just a pimp, I think.
Yeah, because there's like a bit where there's like he's in like her office and there's like a photo of like
you're right,
with his wife and a daughter.
Maybe she is his wife. Yeah.
So I'm not sure if that's the information, but when it's funny when she comes in, it's going back to the like I guess the ninjas fight scene. It's like when she comes in, she's like there's no suggestion that she's good at fighting, but she's tough. She's got grits.
Yeah.
But she just comes in and just starts like shooting like a few ninjas.
She's got a gun, man.
She's got a gun. It's just really funny. And then she gets knocked out by the prostitute.
Yeah.
And then like Dev takes the plate and like just like decapitates. Whacks her finger off with the. It was really funny.
Save that for
That's
later.
when I had another bit of like a exasperation from the audience members next to us. I wonder if they liked the movie or they were just like, oh yeah, it looks like a bit of a fun action movie. And it's just like super like intense.
The violence does kind of like add to the enjoyment because it is like pretty over the top. But I think if you're watching this kind of movie, you gotta steel yourself for this level of violence, I reckon.
I think so. Well, I think just going back to like The Beekeeper, which is a pretty violent movie in itself. I don't think there's anything that is as, I would say, high impact to memory as in comparison to this one where I would say that the fight scenes are better shot in The Beekeeper, but Monkey Man has a much higher impact and probably a better story as well. It's not as stupid as The Beekeeper. I've talked about that movie.
You mentioned it a lot, man. I think it's got to be in your top 3 for the year so far, right?
It might be so far. It's probably one of the best movies I've seen.
Honestly, like judging from social media content I've seen, you're not alone in that regard. I think a lot of people hold Beekeeper pretty highly rated in there.
Oh, really?
In movies of this year, anyway.
It's one of the highest grossing movies of this year so far. Yeah, The Beekeeper. It's so silly, but I'm glad that like Dev went for this high impact at the end, because it can turn a few people off. It can turn executives off, you know. You could be like, oh, I don't know, I'm not sure if this.
And I guess it did turn the Netflix executives off. So again, good on you, Jordan Peele.
I was saying like, a lot of the violent content and the sexual content is pretty extreme for an Indian, a general Indian audience, or for what their censors would allow. But you said like, do you know much about like the political nature of the film, or do you know much about the other reasons why this movie is being censored, I guess?
Not really. Like, I haven't really looked into it, but I can kind of just get a sense of like, there's some commentary in this film about the political climate and like prejudice and stuff that may be, because this is written by Dev, right? And he, while he has Indian heritage, he's British, right? So it's kind of like, is he in the best position to kind of make this kind of judgment and commentary? I think that's probably the argument there. Like, but that's not really for me to say. I would say, and I don't know enough about the situation to really comment on any of that, really.
I mean, if anyone knows a lot more about it, like, feel free to chat about it in the comments or whatever, because I would genuinely like to know, because like you and I don't have we don't have a stake in this bone.
But even on like a surface level, you can watch this kind of film and you can see why a general audience from that country might be like, oh I don't know about that. Right?
It could be like, this could be like a pretty insensitive film, like I wouldn't know, but I mean, as just a revenge-driven action film, I think it's highly enjoyable with many, many flaws. But I think ultimately it's a movie that I highly recommend people go see in the cinema. We can get more cool action films, get more cool action films inspired by a lot of the films that we often talk about on this podcast.
Definitely.
Which is like a lot of Korean action films.
And shoestring budget as well. Like, you don't need to spend upwards of $100 million to make a good film.
$300 million to make an Indiana Jones movie that nobody watched.
Right. Just an original story, and good action. Sometimes that's all you need, really.
Yeah. I do hope this kind of small, even mid-budget movie kind of comes back to the cinema, because they're more risky, you know.
But also, at the same time, not as risky, because it's only $10 million as opposed to $300 million. Man,
but like
Disney lost so much money on that fucking movie, Tommy.
I mean, they've lost so much money on several films. But you know, sometimes when you're working within a confines, you can see the limitations adds to the creative vision. And I think you can see that within this film, you know. So like, plot-wise, maybe it's not the best structurally. Maybe it's a lot of things don't add up. But sometimes it is like the effort of the movie. It's why like some people will watch films by Neil Breen, or who killed Captain Alex, you know, because there's
both good movies.
An eccentric person behind making them, and there's a genuine effort, you know, even if they're a bit weird. Actually, I think the guy who made who killed Captain Alex is like a pretty like normal guy. Neil Breen is definitely
not a normal guy.
Not a normal guy. Just judging for what I've seen about him. But then, like, you know, people watch a film like Tommy Wiseau, you kind of just see this inner mindset.
It's good to see a singular vision. In any case.
I think so. Rather than just like a product that's like had, you know, that's been fucked by like a bunch of like corporate investors who don't know anything about movies, and it's just like, oh, can you change this? And then you get this like homogenous sludge that comes out from Disney, and it's the same shit every time. Anyway,
if there's one thing I would change, he should have been Monkey Man more. He should have been wearing the mask for more of the movie. Should have thrown some poop, just gone full Monkey Man.
Probably should have been more of that that Punjabi MC song as well. Even though, like,
talk about the 2000s, Tommy.
if the trailer, they use that song. They use that song a lot in the marketing. I wonder as like maybe like an Indian person or like an Indian American or whatever. It's like, oh, of course they use this song.
Right.
This
What's
like
the Asian equivalent of that, Tommy?
Oh, fuck.
Dynamite by BTS.
No, they don't use Dynamite. That we don't really. Yeah, just like any kind of generic like 80s
K-pop,
Chinese song.
K-pop needle drop.
Yeah, K-pop. Yeah, they use Esper a lot recently in shows.
That's true, actually.
Level.
Maybe maybe Espa is more generous with its movie rights and stuff.
Yeah. I mean, it was in White Fever, which was like
White Fever. Was it in Resident Evil? Was that someone else?
It was in Resident Evil.
Yeah.
When they go skateboarding and it makes more sense in White Fever because it's about Korean stuff. So
but anyway, enough about Monkey Man. You got anything more to say about Monkey Man, Tommy?
No, I would just say go watch it. It's fun. Yeah, support these kind of indie low budget action films that have a lot of effort into them.
I agree. But guys, what did you think of Monkey Man? Did you enjoy it, or did you find bits of it offensive? If you did, like, legitimately, let us know in the comments. Be respectful, obviously, but we always do want to learn more about the background of like where these kinds of films are coming from. So if you have more knowledge than us, which a lot of people will, let us know in the comments. You can get in touch with us at twoasianblokes@gmail.com. You can join our Facebook group to be part of the conversation, or you can follow us on Instagram and TikTok at twoasianblokes to see what we're up to. Did you like the news section of this show, guys? We'll try to keep it up, but no promises. It's pretty tricky to do weekly news, but we'll give it a go.
Yeah. Let's just do it whenever we feel like it, which is basically the feel of this podcast. Anyway.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Singular vision. All right, guys, I think that's it for us. Until next time.
That's it.
Yeah, we'll see you later.
Bye.